Hello everyone. It has been 2 months since I posted my first Glottoplasty video, and in the meantime, while I am working on some other time-consuming videos, I thought I'd do a 6-month Glottoplasty update. Right out of the gate, I want to get one thing out of the way, make something clear. This procedure is a permanent, life-changing decision with lasting impacts. One of which, to give an example, is loss of volume. That might not seem like a lot on the surface, but will impact your life hugely. Say you work in an office, you're shouting across at a coworker, or say you have to give a meeting or a presentation. That is going to be very taxing for you, if not very difficult, if not impossible for you to do. Maybe you work in a loud venue, or you're a party animal, and you're trying to speak to your friend or chat into their ear. It's going to be difficult, if not impossible. Say you play for a sports team, same thing. The last thing I want to do with this video is glorify this procedure without acknowledging its lasting impacts on your day-to-day life. With that said, let's get into it. Brief history. For those of you who don't know me, I had the Glottoplasty, or the modified Wendler Glottoplasty, roughly 6 months ago now. And this is how my voice is sounding. A noticeable gain in clarity and volume since my last video, if I may say so myself. I roughly completed about 12 vocal training sessions before undergoing this procedure. To give you context, this is the sound of my voice while still mask presenting, so of course before the procedure and before training.
So my then fiance, now wife, got married last Friday.
This is that same sentence, then said after training while femme presenting.
My then fiance and now wife got married last Friday.
This is that after surgery. My then fiance and now wife got married last Friday. And that first and last one intermixed sounds like this, just so you can kind of compare them.
So my
then fiance and now wife
got married
last Friday. So, a big difference. I often think, oh, there's not really that much of a difference between my post-surgery and pre-surgery voice. And then I listen to them back to back and it's like, okay, holy crap, yeah. Big difference. My pre-surgery voice and post-training voice was roughly 165 hertz, which is fairly high. Dr Al Yagchi even said in my consultation that if he had a particularly low patient and they ended up with 165 hertz post-op, he would be happy. It's also at the lower end of or what is seen as the feminine range, which is usually 165 to 255 hertz. Speaking of frequency, my voice is kind of settled into the 210 hertz marks now, post-surgery. Again, that could change with time, but I want to take this opportunity to say voice is about so much more than frequency. I like to think of it the same way I do transition, as kind of like baking. It's a sum of different things coming together to have an overall effect. But similar again to baking, some ingredients can be more overpowering than others. For instance, if I'm baking a loaf of bread and I go overboard on the salt, I'm going to notice. But if I go overboard on the flour, might not notice as much. So what surgery did I have? First, I'm not a doctor, but I will explain the procedure as best I can and to the best of my understanding. I had what's called a modified Wendler Glottoplasty. And what this surgery involves is essentially shortening the vocal cords. They cut a bit at the bottom and then stitch them together and allow them to heal. How this impacts your voice is similar to how it would impact a stringed instrument. Think of it like a guitar. If you want to raise the note on a guitar, you can either increase the tension on the string or you can shorten the string. And this is a case of shortening the string or shortening the vocal cords. I highly suggest visiting Dr Al Yagchi's website, where he essentially covers all of the types of vocal feminization surgery procedures, how they're done, and how they differ from each other. I will leave it up to his descriptions to explain, because of course he'll do it better than I ever will. Next, I want to cover cost. I paid for this surgery privately, without insurance, thanks to my family, particularly my wife Kaylee. It's something I'd never have been able to afford on my own. In terms of cost, it ended up being £40. I will leave a full breakdown in the description, but keep in mind that is just a snapshot. Costs change, costs of venues, equipment, everything, etc. changes. So if you end up going through with this procedure, you may find that the cost has changed. In terms of the logistics of having the operation itself, I flew out 2 days before my operation and then flew out the day after. As soon as I was finished the procedure, I literally just walked out with my wife. We went shopping and it was fine. Getting through the airport was okay too. I ended up not having to speak at all. Even still, it was nice to have my wife Kaylee with me. But I ended up not needing her help to get through security and things like that, so it was okay. But obviously, that's just my experience. I could totally see a situation where you do need someone. Now, my thoughts at 6 months post-op. What can I say? The results of this procedure have been truly profound. It is, without a doubt, the single biggest change I made in my life that impacted my transition and how I'm perceived by others in my daily life. It's just been massive. It has enabled me to just go about my life and forget the fact that I'm trans. The moment of stress and panic when I have to talk to someone or answer the phone in public. I gave the example of like public transport, where you're sitting on the bus and then your phone rings and it's like, oh, I've been passing up until this point and now I have to speak and it's all ruined. Those moments are gone and they're replaced with, hey, time to show off my freaking voice. Obviously, that's an exaggerated example, but you get what I mean. Frankly, it's what inspired me to do more work on this channel. It was a huge barrier for me doing it before. I had looked into everything. I was like, oh, I could change the frequency in post. I could do like an AI voiceover instead. I could do this, that, that. But now I can just do it. And it's amazing. Now, let's look at vocal kind of flexibility and range. Of course, when you're speaking and going about your day-to-day life, you're not just speaking normally in like a conversational level for the whole day. There's nuance. There's like whispers, there's shouts. So I'm going to try to demonstrate what some of those sound like now, post glottoplasty. So let's get right up in here. I'll say, I like shooting film with a Hasselblad film camera. I like shooting film with a Hasselblad film camera. I like shooting film with a Hasselblad film camera. Yeah. Okay, so it's also occurred to me while editing this that I talk in this all the time about singing and caring about singing again. And I've been pretty, I guess, happy with how it's been going. For context, I don't sing professionally. It's just for me. So I've never really shown it. So I thought I might as well. So here you go. It's a bit of a song called Back to Friends by Somber. It's been on my repeat lately. Let's have a go. How can we go back to being friends when we just shared a bed? How can you look at me and pretend I'm someone you've never met? There you go. The next thing I want to cover is I can't imagine anyone not having a strong connection to their voice think about it, it's a huge defining characteristic. It occupies an entire sense to other people. Think of all of those times that you were watching an anime or something and you look up the voice actor after, and that disconnect from the picture you had painted in your head with what they look like, or maybe how accurate you were. Voice informs a lot about a person. Pre my transition, my voice was something I honestly loved about myself. I took pride in it. It was very much one of my defining characteristics. It was something even people commented on to me about the nature of it, how it sounded, what they thought of it. So losing it, or at least losing my confidence in it, honestly left a hole in my identity. This procedure gave that back to me and enabled me to just go back to living. Now, in contrast to that, I had gotten so used to not speaking that it is now negatively impacting me. Again, I mentioned this briefly, if I don't go into a sentence with confidence and projecting, it ends up sounding worse. And that is something I have to undo now. Undo that mental memory, that physical memory, the muscle memory of speaking in a certain way. What comes along with that then too is I find it difficult to trust my voice. I mentioned the scenarios of raising your voice. A lot of that is a mental block too. I got so used to never raising my voice because it was just such a taxing scenario for voice training, where it's very hard to maintain a femme voice, at least it was for me, when raising your voice. So it's a scenario I learned to kind of avoid. Now that's something I can do. And it's learning to trust in those social scenarios that if I go to, not shout, but like raise my voice to communicate to someone, that it's going to be okay. Now, to look at some of the downsides, I guess, in more depth, singing is, or at least professionally, or doing anything with your voice professionally, is largely out of the picture. I still find it difficult to, like right now, I've got a drink, I'm sipping away on this to be able to get through this. It's difficult to speak for extended and long periods of time. I'm now like doing a career move, so I'm looking at different job postings, but I'm considering at the back of my head, will I have to speak for long periods of time? For instance, like being a school teacher, I'm thinking, do I need like a microphone to be able to speak and give a class? If I had to do a lesson for 30 minutes, would I be able to? Even things in like interviews, I always have to bring a glass of water with me or make sure I have water because I know I'm going to get very dry in my mouth, and that situation's even worse post-glottoplasty. But to conclude, hands down, in my case, the positives hugely outweigh the benefits. In day-to-day life, there's not too many scenarios where you need to speak for an extended period of time. Cut in from editor Hannah here. I make a point here where I'm talking about I perceived my voice as like having fried or sounded bad. And this is something I'm really realizing editing this now. There are times when you're speaking and you think a word that you said sounds terrible or it came out really wrong, but it really doesn't. So for clarity, that's what I'm talking about here. In my mind, the previous word I said, a period of time, sounded off. And I'm saying, I'll leave this in because I think it's a genuine representation of what life is like after the glottoplasty. And then I go on to talk about it. But editing it now, it really doesn't sound that bad. So just thought I'd explain what I'm talking about here. I will leave that in. I think that's genuine. To see, there are some times when you say a word and it's like, and it doesn't quite come out right. And most people will overlook that. To give an update to the job scenario, still passing apparently. But in terms of more nuanced times, I guess, during conversation, voice, as you can hear, this is how it sounds, but obviously communication day to day isn't just stuff like that. There's sneezes, there's laughs. One scenario I find particularly difficult is speaking through a laugh. So when you're like, oh my God, that's so funny. Masculinity creeps in there. So I find myself afraid of those scenarios. They've become like my new Achilles heel. But I think it's a case of where everything else and the body of experience people have with me otherwise, they're willing to overlook it and go like, oh, that was weird. But like all these other times and all these other scenarios, people overlook it. Also, who cares? Like, people have quirks. I'm very much a believer in our perception of reality shapes our experience of reality. There's a great Anna Akana video about it. I could very much just be perceiving people's reaction to those scenarios in a certain way because that's how I expect them to react. So I try to be cognizant of that and not look too much into those things. But again, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Listening back to my old video is what sparked me to want to make this, because it does sound like very weak, not a lot of clarity in the voice, so I wanted to show that that has improved hugely since then. And there we go, I guess. Anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next one.